I gotta admit, Tuesday crept on us very, very quickly. These Monday night games are fun when you win, but when you lose and all of a sudden you don't even have a day to think about it before you got to get right back into these shows is a bit of a bummer. But I'm with my guy Ryan, and that is not a bummer. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to this game. We're going to talk about Brock Purdy. We're going to talk about the blame game. We're going to talk about some reasons to be optimistic, though, as well going forward. And we're going to do all of that next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And as I said, it's a Tuesday afternoon on the East Coast, still morning on the West Coast, but that means I've got my guy Ryan G. Hensley in the building. Ryan, what's going on, my man?
Not much, man. Busy day today. I'm going live with Jesse right now. Then I got a show after this with Twin. I'm going on live with Grant at 1 p.m. I got to drive my kid to the airport, manage my escrows, and it's cold as hell in here. But outside of that, man, can't complain.
You know what's funny is we were little peel behind the curtain. So about a month ago, we were doing a show, and I called Ryan a boomer because he couldn't figure out how to put his phone on silent, and it kept ringing. And he's like, "Listen, I'm not a boomer." And so we were talking about this backstage. The best part about this whole thing is you'll notice that Ryan and I every week we stream simultaneously. It's on his channel and it's on my channel. But this week, not on his channel because he couldn't figure out the technology. I feel like that's boomer tendencies. I'm just letting you know.
I hit save. It didn't work. What am I supposed to do? I'm Gen X, by the way, guys. Gen X. Let's get it straight. No boomer over here. Okay.
Goodness sakes. All right, let's talk about the 49ers and the Ravens and just the state of this team. But first, every week we go through the Tuesday updates of Brock Purdy. Now, most of the time these updates are phenomenal. I have a feeling we're going to see maybe some dips in performance after last night's game, which is to be expected. But overall, how is Brock Purdy still trending as we get to the tail end of the season here, Ryan?
Really only one dramatic change. I'll go through it like I do every week, but really only one dramatic change. Completion 16th with 286, same position as last week. Attempts 21st, same position as last week. Completions 4th, his completion percentage is 4th with 68.8, down one spot. Yards 2nd. He did eclipse 4,000 yards. He has 4,050 now. Nice. Same spot as last week. Average 9.7, down 0.2, but same position as last week in first place. Yards per game 5th, which was the same as last week. Long, down 2 spots. Passing touchdown 2nd with 29 spots. Now he's below, who is it now? Dak, I believe? No. Who the hell is it? Let me tell you guys because I got to give you the whole info. One person has more interceptions more touchdowns. Yeah, it's Dak. Dak has 30 touchdowns now. So he just dropped one spot there. Okay. Interceptions. Here's where a substantial, big, humongous drop. The biggest drop of the season for Brock Purdy. Obviously, coming after a 4-interception game. He dropped 19 spots down to 25th in interceptions, which is not good, obviously. He has, it's the biggest concern for me looking at this because he is only, 21st in attempts? But now he's tied for 7th in the most interceptions. So that's a trend we got to watch. Obviously, coming off a 4-interception game, that kind of skews things a little bit. We'll see how he finishes the season. That should even out if he doesn't throw interceptions over the next couple games. But definitely something to watch. Probably the only concerning stat that Brock Purdy has on his resume this year is his interceptions. He's basically tied with Joshua Dobbs, who you really don't want to be tied with. Dobbs has, 416 attempts with 10 interceptions, and Brock Purdy has 417 with 11 interceptions. So that's the one to watch. Hopefully that's not a trend that continues for Brock Purdy. Let's go. Let's move forward. Sacks. This one's really good. He's only tied for his 12th best with 28. Moved up one spot. Considering his offensive line, it's really good how Brock is able to avoid sacks. Sack for loss, 3rd with 153. So he's moved up 8 spots. He's not taking a lot of losses when he does get sacked. He remains at first in QBR and rating. He's trending 4,590 yards, 33 touchdowns, and now 12 interceptions. So that's where Brock's at right now.
Yeah, let's talk about the interceptions for just a minute, because I think I brought this up. Maybe it was last week when you were going through the numbers, and you definitely have to give him credit because he was 21st in passing, still is, as far as attempts, but he's near the top of the league in yards, near the top of the league in touchdowns, which is fantastic. And one thing that I brought up about Dak, though, is that we're not bringing into account is, yes, Dak has more attempts, and some of these guys have more attempts, but for the amount of attempts that they have, they also have either less interceptions or right there with Brock, which is also impressive on their part. And so now, you have the 4 interception game, which certainly skews things. But really, that's always been my only concern with Brock Purdy. It's funny because there was the whole offseason conversation about his arm, which definitely I agree. Never had the strongest arm. I don't think anybody would argue that. But that's not what I talked about. That's not the biggest talking point for me. My biggest talking point for Brock Purdy, and always has been, is his decision making. And I think that it was questionable in college. I think it's been questionable in the NFL. And I think that his turnover worthy plays last year, and for a big majority of this year, the percentage has always been there. And so sometimes you're going to get lucky and sometimes you're not. I know people talked about the interceptions last night and said, well, Kyle in particular said, well, he was unlucky on 3 of them. Yeah, but you create your own luck to a certain extent. He's been very lucky on a lot of them.
That's every
Right,
quarterback.
right. He's been very lucky on a lot of them. And in fact, last night he had 2 more that were 3 more that I think he could have thrown. 2 were thrown to a defender that were dropped. Another one, the ball was tipped at the line of scrimmage. The attempt was going to use check. And if you look at that play, Hamilton was waiting for that ball to get there, because I think he was going to try to jump it and pick 6 it. So it might have actually, it could have been as many as 7 interceptions for Brock last night. The point is that, yes, he threw 4, 3 of them tipped, whatever, but you create your own luck. You can't roll to your right and throw across your body the way that he does and has in the past against elite defenses. Those things just don't fly against good teams. And so that's my only concern with Brock. It always has been, is just some of the decision-making things. I don't think it's end of world. I think that Brock's going to bounce back in a great way. They have 2 teams here where he can kind of get his groove back going into the playoffs. But long term, it is a concern of mine. It always has been, and it's going to continue to be until it's not, or it just proves out to be that I should have been concerned the whole time, I guess.
Can we talk about the interceptions from last night? I wanted to get your take on those. So to me, when an interception that's not a quarterback's fault is an interception that maybe the receiver runs the wrong route.
For sure.
And he throws it to where he's supposed to be and it gets intercepted. That's not on the quarterback. Or a ball that's thrown well, hits the receiver in the hands and is tipped up and the defense catches it, right? That's not on the quarterback. But these interceptions last night, I know a lot of people are saying, oh, he had one bad one. I mean, every single ball that he threw was first touched by the defender, right? When the tip behind the line of scrimmage, that was tipped by a defender. Brock Purdy is responsible for that. I don't understand why we were saying, hey, it got tipped, it's not his fault. Well, if you're a quarterback and you throw the ball and it gets tipped, that is your fault. So I'm not understanding the one to Kittle also. People say, yeah, it hit him in his chest, but it was like the 3-hand thing, right? Kittle had his hands up and it went through his hands, as well as the defender had one hand on it. Then it hit his chest. That's on Brock Purdy. I don't really understand why we are. And here's the thing: like, it's okay to talk honestly about Brock Purdy, and he having a bad night doesn't mean he's a bad quarterback.
Mahomes had an awful game yesterday too. Like, you know what I mean? And so it happens. It totally happens. But you can't have honest conversations about players if you're going to cape for them every time something doesn't go their way. I'm sorry, you can't. It was like you had the 2-game interception against Minnesota. Oh well, he was concussed. Okay. Well, then he had the 2 against the Bengals right after that. Oh, but the defense didn't do what they needed to do.
Yeah.
What about the Cleveland game? Well, it was raining and he put the team in a position, and then last night it was like, well, 3 of them weren't his fault. Okay, well, listen, if we can't even just have an honest conversation and say, hey, things weren't good. They've been amazing all season. Like, I've been here saying they're amazing all season. I would like some of that in return when it's not amazing and say, yeah, it wasn't good. Who cares? Like, he'll be fine. It's okay to say he'll be fine, but to act as if, oh, it wasn't on him and it never is, you just can't. You can't have an honest conversation that way. You just can't.
Yeah, Grant and I talked about homerism on Friday on the show, and I think it's what plays into a part here. Like I've learned to appreciate over time being objective about my team. I find it more enjoyable and also allows me to analyze other teams objectively. And if you're a homer and your team can do no wrong, to me, you just can't enjoy the whole game in general, the whole
Right.
NFL is, and you can't get a realistic picture of who you are as a team. It's okay to say Brock Purdy had a bad game because guess what? He did. He had a bad game. But that doesn't mean he's doomed or he's a horrible quarterback.
Right.
But we have to speak honestly. These interception trends, like for an example, if Brock Purdy threw as many attempts as Patrick Mahomes, who a lot of Niner fans have been critical of this season. Oh, Patrick Mahomes, he's turning the ball over, he's playing bad. If Brock Purdy threw the ball as much as Patrick Mahomes, he would be second in the NFL in interceptions, only behind Sam Howell. Now that's a concern, something that we should talk about. It's an honest statistic and a conversation that needs to be had. But again, Brock Purdy's in his second season, 23 years old. There's a lot of context to this. He's doing really good.
Yeah.
I think overall his numbers are tremendous outside of that. So let's just have honest conversations. He had a bad game. He was one of the main reasons the 49ers lost last night. It's okay to say that. He's
It
not gonna
seems
be
like
hurt.
when the wheels fall off, they really fall off for him in this offense. And overall, it's going to be fine. Like it also, what it also doesn't mean is this is who he is. Right? Because I see this both ways. I really do. I see the side where it's like nothing's ever his fault. You got to protect him at all costs. He's great. He never does anything wrong. Which is interesting because we never want to provide context when we see these other quarterbacks throw interceptions, but I digress. But I also find it interesting that we are basically stating this is who he is. Oh, see, this is who he's always been. This is who he is. This is why I don't believe in him. It's like, okay, well, maybe the truth just lies somewhere in the middle. Maybe we just went so far over the top with, oh, he's better than this quarterback and this quarterback that have been doing it for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Okay, well, maybe that's not true. And maybe that was never true. But also he's not Buns. Like that's also not true. He's somewhere in the middle and it's okay. And being in year 2 to even be somewhere in the middle is fine with me because you can win with that. And I think games like this are great lessons for him to learn and try to grow and be better. This is something that all quarterbacks go through. Brock Purdy is fantastic, but Brock Purdy was not going to come into this league unscathed ever and just be a fantastic player and have a Hall of Fame career. It wasn't going to happen. It hasn't happened for any quarterback ever. He's not exceptional or special in that way. He's going to have to take his lumps from time to time. And when he does, we support him as a fan of this team and we move forward. But we are going to talk about it and we are going to have honest conversations about it. And when it's not good, we will say, and when it's great, we've done that all year too. So it wasn't a good game. I'm not going to listen to the excuses for it. It wasn't a good game. He could have had 7 interceptions. It is what it is. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. And it's okay. He'll be fine.
Yeah. We'll have to see how it plays out over time. It's about the accumulation, right? Perfection can't be the standard. You have to expect
No,
bad games from every player in every sport, right?
exactly.
It's sports, right? You're not going to come out and be perfect. And so the main thing is for me moving forward is that Brock keeps that confidence and that Kyle keeps that confidence in Brock.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And we have to remember that these teams get paid too. There's players on the other side that are getting paid.
It's the number one defense in the NFL we played last night.
Number 1 defense in the NFL. They did their homework. There was a lot that the Ravens had on the line in that game when you really look at it. A lot that they had on the line. They were playing to try to prove that their quarterback was an MVP too. And that defense was out for blood, you could tell. You've also got the dynamic of every time a Harbaugh plays the 49ers, you know that there's something personal there. So this is the Ravens are not to be messed with. They are a good team. And if you don't come correct the way that the 49ers didn't last night, this is the result. Doesn't mean that the 49ers can't beat them in a rematch if we get a Super Bowl. It just means that last night on that field, the Ravens were the better team. Lamar was clearly the best player on the field, and he's probably going to win the MVP, and it's deservedly so. It just is. It's the way
Yeah,
it works.
Lamar is good, isn't he, man? It's. Hey, I gotta know, man. Maddox, how's he feeling right now after the
Oh,
game?
he's
How was that? How was that watching that game with Maddox?
so hyped. He's so high. It was funny early because he was so frustrated when the safety happened. He was so mad at the ref for being in Lamar's way and for it being a safety and
Yeah,
all those other things. But as the game went on, he was just very excited. It was fun to watch him. It took the frustration as being a fan of the 49ers losing really completely out of it because I'm just watching his excitement and his just his love for the Ravens, and you're like, all right, listen, this sucks, but I'm so happy for him. And the Ravens, they're a good team. They're a good team. They do it the right way. John Harbaugh's a hell of a coach. I know
Mhm.
this offseason, a lot of people had Kyle Shanahan in their top 5. I put him at 6 or 7. And my thing was Harbaugh. Harbaugh, I think, is a Hall of Fame caliber coach after what he's put on his resume. And I had
Yeah.
Harbaugh ahead of Shanahan. And last night is kind of shows that he should be there, rightfully so. But you've got a well-coached team. You've got Lamar, who frankly there was no running game for him last night either. We talk about the 49ers and we're going to talk about blame game, and I'm curious to see where you go with it. But we talk about the 49ers and not having a run game or not committing to the run. The Ravens weren't running the ball. And everybody who doesn't watch Lamar is like, oh, he's overrated as a thrower and he's only a runner and this and that. No, he had to throw the ball a ton last night and he did pretty well with it. And yes, he got mobile and used his legs. That was fantastic, but that was not the main thing that he did last night. And he didn't have much help from those running backs. So, Lamar came in a hostile environment being told that this is MVPs on the line, and he did his thing and the Ravens did their thing. And there's nothing you can say about it other than that team gets paid and they whooped the 49ers butts last night. They just did. That's what happened.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason Lamar Jackson is 20-1 now against NFC opponents. He just
It's a
had
real
it
stat.
dialed in.
That
Yeah.
is a real stat. That
Yeah.
it holds water. That stat
Mhm.
holds water. All day, every day. Kim says maybe Cam knows what the F he's talking about. Yeah, I mean, I think I would stay away from Nick Wright all week. If I'm a 49er fan, I'd stay away from Nick Wright. I don't, Cam doesn't strike me as a guy as an I told you so guy. I don't know that he's gonna double down and be like, see, I told you this is. Maybe he will. Maybe he'll be petty, but I have a feeling that he's kind of moving on from it. But as far as game changer and game manager, I mean, last night wasn't the best display for showing that Brock is a game changer. It was for Lamar, though. He was a game changer.
Yeah,
Brother Bob
definitely.
says, entire AFC North B slapped us except for Pittsburgh. All right, Brother Bob, you gave me a lot of crap this offseason when I picked my Super Bowl between the 49ers and the Bengals, and I had the Bengals winning. But the premise was right. The 49ers are very blessed that they are not in the AFC North. They are very blessed they are not in the AFC North. That division has given them problems all year long.
Mm.
John says Brock is a top 10 quarterback and he's entitled to a stinker. The 49ers are still favored to win the Super Bowl, win the next two, and they get the number 1 seed. The 49ers will be fine from this and move on. I agree. I think the 49ers will be fine. We're going to talk about optimism. I'm still not. I'm not ready to say that Brock Purdy's a top 10 quarterback. I'm sorry.
He's playing
I
like one this year. I'll give him
Yeah. Oh,
that.
he's hold on.
Yeah.
He's playing like arguably the best quarterback in the NFL, right? I'm not going to take away what he's done and say last night is any sort of anything. He's still, when you take the totality of the season, playing like arguably the best quarterback. It's still year one.
Yeah. You have to see how
To
it
say
plays
that
out.
he's anything right now. Now he might end up being a top 5 quarterback in the league for a long time. He might be top 10. He might be top 15. I don't know, but I'm not going to say that he's a top 10 quarterback. It's just too early for me to do that with these guys. I had a lot of questions about Jalen Hurts coming into this season. And a lot, I remember I was having a conversation with Larry. He's like, "Oh, you still question Jalen Hurts?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, it's been a year. Like
Mhm.
we've seen the buildup, but it's been a year. I want to see more." Well, now everybody's out on Jalen Hurts, right? He was a top 5 quarterback going into this year. He had passed up Herbert and Lamar and all these guys. He was in the conversation, and now everybody's like, well, I mean, that was not really that good, right? Like, so, it just, you got to give these guys time. You got to give them time to marinate. At least I do.
Yeah.
John says
you also have to keep it on a level playing field too. So it's very hard to assess quarterback. That's what makes it so difficult, because they're all on different teams. They all have different weapons. They all have different play callers. They all have different schedules. It's very tough to determine exactly where each quarterback falls in line in such a short period of time.
For sure. John says we have a overreacting fan base. That's every fan base. One bad game and he sucks. Turn off the blinders. Fans, Brock is going to be a Pro Bowl NFC quarterback, and that's a fact. Well, hopefully he doesn't play in the Pro Bowl, though, John. That's because if he plays in the Pro Bowl, then that means the 49ers aren't in the Super Bowl. But yeah, I think he's going to be a Pro Bowl quarterback for sure. Brother Bob says, happy that there's no more obsessive BP MVP conversations. All right. Brother Bob says, BP was definitely buns. Let's hope no Ravens and Browns in the Super Bowl. Yeah, I'm not so worried about the Browns being there, but the Ravens might be. We'll see. Ralph became a member. Appreciate you, Ralph. Thank you so much. Shady Luke, Philadelphia Eagles fan, says, serious question, Jesse. When the 49ers aren't leading going into half, is there a concern? Not from an Eagles fan, but from a football fan.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you talk through it, because I'm going to say no, but go ahead. I want to hear your thoughts on it.
I mean, it has to be based on the record. That this 49ers team is not meant to come back from behind. They don't have a good record coming back from behind. Can they do it? Yeah, sure, they could. I'm sure it's going to happen in the future, but it hasn't happened often at all for this 49ers team. The way they are designed is to take the lead and maintain the lead with the run game and the defense. I was hoping that this year the passing game would be at an elite level where they can come from behind, but it hasn't happened yet. So until it happens, I'm going to say, yeah, there is concern, because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, for me, I just have to go off of my feeling from last night, because the 49ers were in that situation. The first half was about as bad as it could have been. Mm-hmm. The 49ers were also within one score at halftime and getting the ball coming out at half. I felt like that team was going to pull out that win at halftime. So all I can do is go off of my gut feeling in that moment. And in that moment, I was not concerned. I was actually pretty encouraged. And I thought that the 49ers were still going to win that game. So based off of just being there last night and what my thoughts were in that moment, I was not concerned. Now, in hindsight, looking at it, I can see why Ryan's saying what he's saying. Hey, you got to prove it. I agree with all those things. It would be nice for the 49ers to prove that they can come from behind and win a game. But concerned is like, I don't think that it's necessarily possible that they can do it. I think they can. They just haven't shown it yet. And last night, I didn't feel concerned when they were in that situation. That's just me. Well, how did you feel in that moment, Ryan? Halftime, they're down 16-12. They're getting the ball at half. Did you think, man, it's awesome, they're getting the ball, but the Ravens have kind of proven they're the better team? Like this could get worse, or they're going to hold on? Or did you think, hey, you know what? The 49ers are going to win this thing here. Like, I'm feeling okay about this.
In my gut, I felt, this shows you what my gut is worth, but in my gut, I felt like Brock Purdy was going to finally get his comeback victory. That's what I thought coming out of halftime. I'm like, this is, it's set up for a classic game. Brock Purdy come back. And in fairness to Brock, man, I feel like Kyle really just kind of blew this thing. Like, he kind of gave up on this game to me. It didn't make sense how he was at the end of the game. He's just like, game's over. Brock's not going back in. We're not going to run the no huddle until Sam Darnold goes out there. It was like, he kind of like, it felt like he gave up. And so, yeah, that's why I am concerned, though, because I was wanting the 49ers to come back and win. I thought they might be able to finally pull it off. But based on what I've seen from Kyle Shanahan, he does not thrive in that situation. That much I do know.
Yeah, well, that is, yes, there's some fact to that. And that precedes Brock Purdy. That was in place before Brock. Brother Bob says, you're right, Nails. You did. I was wrong. Damn AFC North. And then Shady Luke says, because it's clear the 49ers are the best team in the NFC. But I told my friend They are every team's worst nightmare. But if you can have a lead at half, you have a chance. I agree. But I also think that the Ravens weren't having it. I don't think they were the Ravens' worst nightmare at all. I think the Ravens were like, no, if there's a boogeyman, we're the boogeyman. It ain't y'all. So maybe not all teams look at it that way, but I think NFC teams definitely do. I definitely
Yeah,
agree
I
there.
think the Ravens saw the 49ers lose to the Bengals and the Browns, and I believe the Ravens are 3-1 against those teams. And
Mhm.
they probably knew that coming into it. And like the Bengals and Browns can beat the Niners, and we're 3-1 against those teams. I think they figured they could win this game.
Yeah, we're the king of this division, and 3-1 in those games. I think we feel pretty good about this.
Yeah.
And they did. They felt disrespected. They talked about it a little bit, going into it. They did feel disrespected that they were that big of underdogs, according to the books,
And
and
Jesse, you
they backed
you
it up.
laughed last week when I brought this up, but on Monday Night Football, 7 underdogs in a row have won, now 8. I don't know
No,
why
you're
that
right.
is,
You're
but
right.
it's true.
Listen,
Yeah.
listen. There's stats, right? There's stats out there
Yeah.
that are hilarious and they just make no sense, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
And then there are stats like the Lamar stat where he's 20-1 against the NFC, and you're like, that's not a fluky thing. There's something to that.
Yeah.
There's something tangible to that. As far as the underdog thing on Monday Night Football, you are right. I definitely laughed it off, and I still think it's one of those stats. Just like, dude, what? Why? How is
Yeah.
this? I don't
Yeah.
even know that makes sense, but
Yeah.
it
8 in a
certainly
row.
held true. It
8 in
held
a row.
true.
8 in a row
Yeah.
for the underdog on Monday Night Football.
Crazy. I'm betting the underdog. All right. Let's get into blame game here. So, the 49ers lost. I think that everybody is ready to just blame whoever. I saw a lot of blame going around last night. What is the reason that the 49ers lost? Where are you placing your blame if you have blame pie? What are you doing with it?
Look, it's really easy, and I don't want to talk about the defense at all. To be honest, I know maybe other people feel that way. Maybe you feel that way. Look, the 49ers offense turned the ball over 5 times. Brock Purdy was responsible for 4 of them. Kyle Shanahan had a terrible game plan headed into that game. They should have ran the ball with CMC more frequently earlier than they did. That's how I felt watching the game. And I think that was a big part of it. So there's 2 people that I blame for this loss. One is named Kyle, the other one is named Brock. And yes, people want to, whenever the 49ers lose, it's always multiple interceptions from our quarterback. And whenever the 49ers lose, a lot of people want to bring up the defense. Hey, it's not like they were great. But when you turn the ball over 5 times, you are going to lose football games. I think there's only been one team that's ever won a game after throwing 5 interceptions. I think it was the Cowboys with Tony Romo. I can't think of another one. And statistically, I tweeted out at halftime, when you have 3 interceptions, you only have an 8.7% chance of winning a ball game. That's just a fact. That's the history of the NFL. If you turn the ball over, if there's a 3-0 interception, turnover differential between you and your opponent, you're going to lose 91.7% of the time. Statistically, factually. That is why the 49ers lost, period, end of story. You can't turn the ball over. Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan are the reason the 49ers lost last night.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I'm placing blame, I'm definitely going to the offense. I think I don't know. I don't know how the defense always ends up like in the crosshairs when these things happen, because the time of possession was one thing, but the defense was constantly having to overcome those turnovers and constantly have to get stops off those turnovers. And they did a great job for as long as they could. And then eventually it was like, all right, well, we can't do it forever. That being said, I actually again, I try to put myself in the situation of when I was watching the game, what did I think? And be genuine about that. I don't like to have revisionist history. Now, there is times where I'll change my opinion and say, "Hey, you know what? I went back and I rewatched it, or I watched the film, or somebody pointed X, Y, and Z out to me. I originally thought this and I was wrong, or I've changed my opinion on it." But in the moment, and because this game just happened yesterday, I wasn't. a lot of people were blaming Kyle. We got to run the ball more. We got to do that. Hold on a second. Because this same week, everybody was mad because people were calling Brock Purdy a game manager and not a game changer. People wanted, I put up a case on Twitter, Ryan, for Brock Purdy and CMC to be MVPs. Do you know how many people I had tell me that CMC is nothing without Brock Purdy? One is too many, right? But I had at least 5 or 6 point this out. And the sentiment was, well, it's a quarterback award. You need to give it to Brock Purdy. I said, I'm not telling you in this tweet who I'm giving it to. I'm just simply making a case for both of them. They both could make a case for MVP. My point is that you have a big sweeping portion of this fan base that thought he was the clear MVP of the NFL. You have a clear sweeping portion of this fan base that thinks he's elite, okay, and that he is a game changer and not a game manager. So if that is the case, when Kyle decides to put it on the shoulders of his MVP quarterback, who's a game changer, why is that a problem? Why is that an issue? Because and I'm not saying you, Ryan, because I know what your thoughts are around the whole thing. You had CMC as your MVP, so I get where you're going with it. Like in hindsight, I feel like you can say what you said and have an issue with it. But when it was against Philly, shout out to my guy Roscoe's for pointing this out. When it was against Philly, you didn't have a problem with them slinging the rock all over the field. It was like, oh, see, that's our MVP. I mean, he can go out and do these things. Like, we're different now. We're a different team. If Kyle felt like going into that game, hey, we can exploit some things through the air. I've got an MVP caliber quarterback who's not a game manager and is a game changer. I can't be that mad at it. Now, I think through the flow of the game, once the picks started coming, it's like, okay, all right, Kyle, like he's up, man. He doesn't have it today. He doesn't have his best stuff. Like maybe don't throw a heater down the center of the pipe every time. But I get that portion of it. But yeah, but go ahead.
Here's my thoughts on it. I think that was the wrong plan. I think that was like, if you look at this Ravens team, like their defensive back unit is phenomenal. The 49ers receivers had barely any separation like we're used to seeing. The windows were tighter. And so I feel like it was the wrong plan going into the game. And that to me, it's a game by game thing, right? And I'm not saying you got to run the ball because Brock Purdy is only a game manager. That's not my thoughts. But I feel like in this particular game against this defense, the best plan was to use Brock Purdy, run the ball, keep the ball out of Lamar's hands, and don't try to attack a defense that has an elite defensive back unit. I mean, there are a lot of guys that people don't know about, but if you look at what they've done all year and just look at the game last night, man, the coverage was so tight, man. The separation was not there like we're used to seeing. I think it was a bad plan to come into it, and I also think, like you said, Kyle should have saw that quickly. Hey, man, we got to run this rock. I mean, because it was clear to all of us, right? The run game was effective on the left side. It's never effective on the right side, which is a huge problem in itself. But, man, CMC is the best player on this team by far, and it was the only thing that was positive that was working for these 49ers, running to that left side. And I felt like Kyle kind of dropped the ball on that. I feel like he should have been about that more earlier than he was. I tweeted it out earlier. I tweeted out during the game when I was watching it. That was the problem that I saw from the get-go. So the blame game to me, it's on Kyle Shanahan. I didn't like his game plan. It's also on Brock Purdy. You can't turn the ball over 4 times and expect to win a game. You just cannot do that. It just doesn't happen. So the defense, yes, did they have a hard time maintaining Lamar Jackson? Yeah, everybody does. That's why he's Lamar Jackson. That's probably why he's going to win the MVP.
And they did a great job, really. I mean, they were put in some bad situations. For a whole half, they really held that thing together as good as they could have. And then you come out and you continuously turn the ball over again. It's like, okay, well, listen, I made the analogy last night where the 49ers defense was trying to hold back the dam, and all you gave them was Flex Seal. And it was like, hey, man, go have at it.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
well,
like putting. It's like,
okay, well, I'm plugging all the holes with this stupid Flex Seal, but at some point, the
yeah.
dam is going to break if you continuously add water to it. All right.
Yeah, it's like a bucket of water, right? You keep
Mhm.
putting water in that bucket. Every time you turn on the boiler, that's more water in that bucket, and eventually it's
Yeah.
going to overflow. And that's what happened. You can't expect the 49ers defense to shut down Lamar Jackson if you're turning the ball over 4 or 5 times in a game. So it's squarely on the shoulders of two dudes, in my opinion, more than anything, Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan. And again, though, that doesn't mean, hey, I think Brock Purdy's trash because he lost this game. He did lose this game, but that doesn't mean he's trash. He can bounce back. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm going to blame anybody, I'm blaming Kyle Hamilton for being an absolute game wrecker. That guy, it felt like there was 3 of them on the field. How was he around every single pass and every turnover? Him and Marlon Humphrey were everywhere, literally everywhere on the field. It was insane.
They're elite, man. They're great to watch. That's a really good freaking defense, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And Marlon, I mean, I it's funny. Last week we were doing behind enemy lines and somebody said, well, if the Ravens defense is so good, then how come the Rams were able to do what they did? And I said, well, 2 reasons for that. One is the Ravens have done a great job of disguising defenses all year and confusing quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Stafford is a veteran in this league. You're not and elite. You're not going to confuse. Yeah, you're not confusing Matthew Stafford. Yep. So that's one. But 2, Kyle Hamilton was out for a big portion of that game. And I got multiple responses that said, oh, he's just one player. He can't make that big of a difference.
Really? And here's the other thing.
The Rams are actually a difference he made last night.
Here's the other thing. The Rams are actually pretty good. And I know we got a couple weeks before we see them. So I guess we don't need to talk about it now, but I think a lot of Niner fans are sleeping on these Rams. They are a legitimate team that could probably make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see what they do. I just don't think they're not complete. I think their offense is going to be able to do some things for sure. Mm-hmm. Their defense doesn't really worry me that much. I think Brock and CMC should be able to do their thing, but I could see a shootout in that situation, and that's a team that could be fighting for a playoff spot.
Think about this: that the Rams are won 5 out of the last 6 games. The only team they lost 2 out of those games was the Ravens in overtime, Baltimore. And they lost by 6 points in Baltimore. They did better against the Ravens than these 49ers did. So if you're sleeping on the Rams, guys, you better wake up, man.
Yeah, no, they're coming on. They're coming on strong for sure. And if they make it into the playoffs, I think they're going to beat Philadelphia. If they match up, if that is the matchup, Rams versus Philly round 1, I'm picking the Rams. Official B&A Music says, I blame Mike Florio. that's where his
B&A was on the news last night, by the way, in the Bay Area. Shout out. Look at B&A on the news. Yeah, he was on the news. He was interviewed after the game. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Brother Bob says, I have to be real. We're a lost cause because our BP was a turnover machine, and Kyle Shanahan somehow didn't realize that for 3.5 quarters, the same thing in reverse happened in the Super Bowl. Yeah, Kyle's got to adjust a little bit better. I do agree with that. I really
why did he not run the no huddle until freaking Sam Darnold went in? Like, you're down by 21 points, dude. It's time to speed up the tempo, man. Like, I don't understand Kyle with that shit. And you know what's crazy too is they say they never practice the 2-minute drill.
I know.
Kyle have you ever practiced 2-minute drill? No. What the fuck? And then the team, sorry, excuse my language, but last week, who did we play last week? The Cardinals?
Yeah.
I believe they were interviewed after the game, and I think it was the Cardinals. I don't know who it was, but I was watching the team being interviewed, and they said, oh, yeah, I mean, it was the Eagles. I don't know who it was, but they say we practice the 2-minute drill every single practice. And I just don't get it, man. Why would you not practice that? It doesn't make sense. And then you don't run it until Sam Darnold comes in. He like gave up on the game and then was like last minute, oh, Sam Darnold's in, let's try to win it down. Like, what the hell is going on with this dude? Sometimes I don't get it, man. He's a tremendous play caller, but sometimes he does shit like this and it blows my damn mind.
Yeah. He's a bit interesting in that way. Mm-hmm. What are some of your takeaways in this game? Like now that we've seen it, now that we've seen really, and we could just go on the season, just how you're feeling about everything, but just some of the takeaways that you have after last night's game, looking into the future. Where are you at with this team?
So I feel like we're top 2 in the NFC, and I say top 2 because we haven't played the Lions, and the Lions are showing that they're serious, man. So I'm not gonna anymore. I'm not gonna say the Lions are by far the best team in the NFC because we haven't played the Lions,
Yeah,
and I'm curious to see what the Lions do. Also, the Rams are doing really good lately. So I think we're top 2, top 3 in the NFC. That much I took away from, right? Are we the best team in the NFL? My takeaway from last night was no, we're not, because we lost to the Ravens. Now, can we get on a hot streak and win 5 games in a row? Yeah, they've done it twice this year, and that's all they need to do to win a Super Bowl. So it's
for sure.
possible that it happens. But my takeaway is coming into this game, I was looking for the 49ers to make a statement that they are the best team in the NFL by beating the Ravens. And that would have given me confidence going into the Super Bowl that they're going to win the 6th Lombardi. My confidence dropped last night watching that game. I still believe that we have a very high chance of making the Super Bowl. My concern is, can we beat a Ravens, a Bengals, or a team like that, a Browns in the Super Bowl? That part I lost a lot of confidence on, and that's my takeaway. My confidence level in this team winning the Lombardi has dropped a little bit. Also, real quick,
Yeah.
Brock Purdy is the definite MVP of this team. Those are my biggest takeaways.
Brock Purdy or CMC?
Or CMC is the
Oh, yeah,
definite
yeah, yeah,
MVP of this team.
Listen,
Yeah,
listen. I was
no
like,
question.
hold on a second. I got something to
Yeah.
say about that one. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay. That's definitely the biggest takeaway is that the league, although it is down, I believe that it is down, that there's still enough around to make things interesting. Because if the 49ers had gone into last night and beaten the Ravens and beaten them soundly, I mean, if you're not a 49er fan, the rest of the playoffs was about to get real boring for you because we pretty much know what's about to happen. The fact that the Ravens won and won the way that they did, I'm actually not necessarily less confident in the 49ers. I'm just not as arrogant that the rest of the league isn't on their level, right? I still think the 49ers are an elite team. I personally still think they're the best team in the NFC. I still think that they are likely going to be in a Super Bowl
Yeah.
and have a great chance to win it. You know, once you're there, you have a 50-50 shot. And for them, these bye weeks are going to be crucial. The bye week going into the playoffs is going to be crucial. They're going to need that. And then the bye week between the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl is going to be crucial. I think the 49ers will be there still. I'm very confident in them, but I'm just a little bit more confident in the rest of the league that maybe they can actually do something here and make this interesting. The playoffs actually got a little bit more fun, a little bit more tense for me, knowing that there are teams out there like the Ravens that are also for real and can make this a little bit of a fight. As far as the NFC goes, I just look at it and say, I think the Eagles just can't keep up with the Niners. Dallas can't keep up with the Niners. The Rams are interesting to your point, and I like what the Lions bring. We talk about physicality and real football and all these things. The Lions are a little bit of that, but their offense, I think, can do some interesting things. I don't know that their defense can keep up. Like they're not the complete team, and so when I look across the NFC, I don't see that complete team that can really hold the 49ers accountable. Those teams do exist in the AFC, and that's when it's going to get really, really interesting for me. But that's probably my biggest takeaway is that there is teams still out there that
Yeah.
can give the 49ers a run for their money.
One more too,
Mhm.
and it was brought up because of the super chat that Trent Williams might actually be the MVP of this team too. Like
For sure.
CMC is the MVP, but like a lot of CMC's success comes off of Trent Williams, and you saw what happened to this team with Trent Williams down. It's concerning that Trent Williams has a groin injury. Aaron Banks turf toe, act back up. Some guy I've never heard of. What's his name? Brock. I didn't even know he was on the team. I've been busy this last couple weeks, so I apologize. Maybe you guys all knew he was on the team. I don't even know what his name is right now. But yeah, this O-line depth is a concern, and Trent Williams is so damn important for this team. He's got to be healthy. Same with Banks.
Absolutely. Well, I know you got a hard out at 10, so let's fire through these supers, get through these last two topics, and clean it up. Brother Bob says, and shout out to my guy Ryan, Mofo OG. I'm so pissed. Kent says they haven't invested enough in the offensive line. We lose Trent and we're done. Teams with strong front fours have been eating our lunch all season. There's not many of them, but you're right. Well, the Eagles didn't eat the 49ers lunch, but they also don't have a complete defense. But those teams that can get home, to your point, with the 4, yeah. Broctavius says 7, 16, 23. I said Steelers, Eagles, and Ravens. 7, 16, 23. I said Steelers, Eagles. Those were going to be the losses this year. Maybe? Is that what you're saying? Well, I appreciate you for being a member for 4 months. I'm sorry I'm butchering this whole thing. Your little gift there or meme or whatever that is, I can't really see what it is. It's blocked out. So, but yeah. Brother Bob says BP got benched. He was cleared, but Kyle Shanahan said no. Brother Bob, I just don't see it that way. You said this last night, and I don't see it that way. He had gotten hurt. He'd gotten the stinger. Yes, if that was a must-have game or they were in it, he would have played. But once the offensive line was as banged up as it is, you can't trot him back out there. It just wouldn't have made sense in that scenario. I didn't look at it as he was like benched because whatever. Cryptic says takeaways. If we cannot play the AFC North in the Super Bowl, I'm still confident for the 49ers. Focus on the NFC, and we can see our AFC opponent come February for sure. We still got some time. Brother Bob says Greasy told BP to talk to Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan gave BP a talking. That was funny though, right? He was like, I don't know. He's looking at Sam. I don't know. Are you in? Am I in? Hey, coach, am I in? He's like, you go talk to Kyle, bro. I'm not making that decision for you. Dazza says, look at what happened to BP and CMC during the 3-game skid when Trent wasn't playing. Good point. Yeah. Very, very good point by you. Point well taken. All right, let's talk about the postseason. So I know that you said that you're not ready to say the 49ers are the best team in the NFC. Do you, when you look at the postseason, give me a confidence level. You said that I'm not as confident. Going into last night, how confident were you? Where are you at now? And just how would you like to see the playoffs kind of pan out as far as opponents for the 49ers?
So the 49ers have a good opportunity to gain the 1 seed, right? If they would have won last night, I feel like they're going to beat the Commanders. They better beat the Commanders. They could have had the 1 seed sewed up. And to me, that's coming to Levi Stadium, having to win 2 games at home. That's an easy path to the Super Bowl. If they can't, this Ram game is I'm a little worried about this Rams game because if they don't win that, there's a good chance they lose the 1 seed. And then it becomes more difficult. Now, if they get the 1 seed, I'm confident that this 49ers team can win at home 2 games and get to the Super Bowl. So my confidence of them getting to the Super Bowl is still high. But my confidence that they're going to win the Super Bowl was humbled last night because of the Ravens. And it doesn't mean they can't, but that was the measuring stick for me. Like, if the 49ers come in here and beat the Ravens, especially the way they've been beating all these other teams, then I'm riding high. This is our year. We're going to win the damn Super Bowl. But after last night, well, from what I saw and the overall performances of Brock Purdy against the AFC North and AFC opponents in general, the 49ers are 2-3 against. It feels like if I had to bet money, and I'm hoping this isn't the case, but if I had to bet money, it seems like we're going to see another 2012, 2019. 49ers go to the Super Bowl and they lose. That's what it feels like right now, based on everything I've seen. I'm hoping that's not the case. I swear to God, I'm hoping that's not the case. I want my kids to see a damn Super Bowl victory so bad. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping they can turn it around. The 49ers have gone on 5-game winning streaks twice. One was a 6-game winning streak, I believe. So they can turn it around. If they win 5 games in a row now, they're Super Bowl champions. So it's definitely possible 49ers still win that 6th Lombardi, but I would be lying if I didn't say my confidence has dropped off.
Give me one team in the NFC, not that you're concerned about, or, you just said that you think the 49ers are going to the Super Bowl. So I imagine you're going to favor the 49ers in all those matchups, but just give me one team that you just prefer. You know what? If I'm picking the path for the 49ers, I would just prefer that they don't play that team in during their playoff run to get to the Super Bowl. Is there a team out there that you can give me?
Absolutely, man. And I actually conducted a poll on this one. See if I can find the results. The results were overwhelming. Let me see if I can find it. It's been a couple days.
Can I guess?
Yeah, go ahead. Guess. Who do you think it is?
Rams.
Yeah. I conducted a poll amongst 49er fans. I'm trying to find the results. A lot of people voted. The choices were I think it was Cowboys, Eagles, Rams, and Lions. Those were the choices of who would you not want to meet, who concerns you the most going into the playoffs. And overwhelmingly, the fans agreed with basically how I feel as well, that the Rams are the scariest team because, 48.2% of 49er fans said the Rams, 16 Cowboys, 21 Eagles, 14 Lions. The least concerned are the Lions for a lot of people, and I think that's a mistake. To me, it's the Rams are the most concerning, and then the Lions because that's unknown. But the Rams, man, we played them once. We didn't. We only beat them by 7 points the first time we played them.
Eight, I think. 33
Something like
to
that.
30, 31 to 23 or something like that. Yeah.
And they're much better now than they were back then. They're clicking. And so we'll see what happens on week 18. If we beat them in week 18 and then have to play them in the playoffs based on what happened to us in the past against the Rams in the playoffs, that concerns the hell out of me. And apparently it concerns most of the 49er fans out of all those teams.
I think for me, it's the teams that have the clear better quarterback. And the only team is the Rams in the NFC. They're the only team. Stafford is clearly better than Purdy.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you put Purdy up against Dak or Hurts at this point, Goff, any of those guys, like you can make the argument, I guess, that Purdy's not the better quarterback, but at least he's in the conversation. He's not in the conversation with Stafford. Stafford is clearly the better quarterback. So when you play these teams that can dictate how things are going to go, like Lamar was able to last night, like Josh Allen could, like Mahomes, if he's right. When you play teams like that, that's what's concerning. Now, luckily for the 49ers, the Rams would be the only team in the NFC that can present that potential issue. The AFC is filled with them, but really the 49ers don't have to go through the AFC. They just got to go through one AFC team and do it in a Super Bowl with 2 weeks of preparation. So I feel much better about that. But yeah, man, I agree. I would say the Rams just because the quarterback situation. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and ultimately, who gives a damn about going to the Super Bowl? I don't. I want to win one.
I don't either. No, I don't either.
Like, I don't want to go to the Super Bowl and lose. I could care less, man. I just end the season early if that's going to be the case. I don't care. I know a lot of fans do. They're like, yay, we made it to the NFC Championship. We won the NFC Championship. We got to the Super Bowl. I'm not of that mindset. It's win the Super Bowl or nothing. This team has the best roster in the NFL. This is Kyle Shanahan's 7th year. It's now or freaking never, man. And we got to win a Super Bowl or else I'm going to be a little frustrated.
Submit says Stafford's a statue compared to Purdy, but that wasn't the conversation, Submit. I said he's a better quarterback than Purdy. Are you debating that? Or are we just debating who can move better?
Stafford's a Hall of Famer.
Stafford's a borderline Hall of Famer for sure.
Yeah.
I started this comment because we're going to find out tomorrow, Ahmed, what the injury report looks like. The players won't be in the building today. Short week. We'll find out tomorrow as far as injuries. Brother Bob says AFC North came into Levi's and manhandled us easy for sure. Dazza says we're the best team in the NFC. The Eagles barely beat the Giants. Cowboys have only one good win on the season. Better to get a humbling loss now. And then Matt says 49ers mental toughness goes to crap when they are behind. We talked a little bit about that, Matt. We did talk a little bit about that. Okay, let's get into this final topic on the way out. It's not all doom and gloom.
Real quick, though.
Yeah.
The Lions are 11-4 and beat the Chiefs. We haven't played the Lions. So, I don't know.
It's a question. I got you.
Yeah.
It's a question. Yeah.
We haven't beat the Chiefs.
Here's the crazy thing. I hate it when we say things like, well, their quarterback is whoever. That's a decent quarterback in this league, but not amazing. And I hate that because I look at it and say, well, can we say for sure that we have an amazing quarterback, right? And I think throughout the season, Brock's kind of proven to be pretty damn good. But I just hate when we look at it and say, oh, well, that quarterback is not very good or whatever, as if we're just rolling with the most elite quarterback in the league on our side of things. But I say that to say I'm going to walk that back a little bit from the standpoint that I think Jared Goff is highly underrated. Yeah. Right. I think the hate for Goff is way too high. Mm-hmm. I said that he's Eli Manning is clutch Jared Goff.
Yeah.
But Jared Goff panics when he gets pressured, man. He absolutely freaking panics. He
Let me
cannot
say
deal
some
with it.
numbers, though. Let me say some numbers,
Yeah.
Jess. I'm looking at them right now, dude.
He's played fantastic. He
Jared
has.
Goff has 27 touchdowns, 10 interceptions.
Yep.
So he has 2 less touchdowns, 1 less interception than Brock Purdy.
Yep. Yep.
He has a 67.7% completion percentage compared to Brock's 68.8. Barely any difference.
Yep.
Dak Prescott, 68.4 completion percentage compared to Brock's 68.8. 0.4 difference. He has 30 touchdowns. Brock has 29. He only has 7 interceptions. Brock has 11. So we write out these quarterbacks like Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, but their numbers are like basically the same, if not better, than Brock's. So that's that homerism coming to
I agree. I agree with you. I don't think that Brock is clearly better than any of these guys. I think they're in the same conversation together. But for me, Jared Goff and his lack of mobility, just he unlike Stafford, who somebody made the comment earlier about how he's not mobile, he will stand there in the fire. Jared Goff does not do that. He panics into sacks. So just an observation. So that's where I'm at with it. But give me one reason to be optimistic heading out of this week and into the future for the 49ers.
Well, I still think this 49ers roster is the best we've seen in if possibly decades. I still think Brock Purdy's playing at a very high clip. George Kittle is 9 yards away from 1,000 yards. Brandon Ayuk's over 1,200 yards. Christian McCaffrey is the MVP of the league. If it's not for Lamar Jackson or somebody like that. So this team is perfectly capable of winning a Super Bowl. They're also perfectly capable of going on runs. They've done it twice this year where they've won at least 5 games in a row. If they do that this time after this loss, that's a Super Bowl victory. So I do have confidence this team is capable of winning the Super Bowl. Not as much as I did yesterday going into that game, but I still have confidence. They're doing a lot of good things. This is a record-breaking year on a lot of fronts. So 49ers should still be optimistic and hopeful that they can pull it off. It's just if we're great, if we're on a scale or we're talking like from a stock standpoint, stock's down a little bit from where it was going into the game yesterday.
I have 2 quick reasons to be optimistic. One, what happened last night to the Ravens is not indicative of what the NFC can do to the 49ers. Okay. The 49ers haven't lost their luster when it comes to the NFC side of things. 2, they've now played Lamar once. And we talk about the 20-1 record. And maybe the Ravens make it, maybe the 49ers make it, and we get the rematch. But if that rematch happens, I feel better about it that it's already happened once in the regular season, and there will not be that shock that Lamar does and brings to NFC teams or teams that don't play Lamar very often. They've at least seen it. They know what to expect. Doesn't mean that they'll stop it. Those are 2 different things. But as far as the shock that he brings, that shock value is out the window. They know what it is. They know what this defense is. They've seen it. They felt it. They can be prepared for it. Those are 2 reasons to be optimistic. The 49ers are going to be fine. They're still going to be the number 1 seed, in my opinion. They're still going to be on a fast track to a Super Bowl, and we'll see what happens when they get there. But I feel very, very confident in this team overall, and they are, to your point, extremely talented. Extremely talented. Matt says, sorry I missed most of the show.
You're not forgiven,
Matt. Jeez, not forgiven. Exactly. Dazza says BP is about 12th best in the league. Good, but not elite, but hasn't carried the team or led a comeback. Yeah, I think that's probably fairish. And I think there's a lot of quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins is kind of the gatekeeper of 12, or Dak Prescott. Like, yeah, he's in that conversation. Matt says, optimistic, no more Hamilton, Queen, and Rogue One. Yeah, we don't got to play them. That makes us optimistic this upcoming week. That being said, show is over. Go over to Ryan's channel. He's got another show starting literally right now. I've held him too long. Appreciate you in the chat. I'm debating. You guys in the comment section after the show's over, put in the comment section. Let me know. Is there an appetite for a call-in show tonight? You guys let me know. If there's enough of an appetite, I'll have one. If not, I will enjoy the family. Until then, I'll talk to you later. Peace.